Hey, good morning. I'm Jim Lammers. I'm with Trinity Animation, which is also Trinity3D.com and vray.us. We're a US-based reseller for vray and Chaos Group, and also for SketchUp. We train and instruct on those, and we also support those. We're located here in Kansas City in the middle of the United States. And today I'm going to show you a little bit about vray 5 for SketchUp BETA. And I'll work through that over the first 20, 25, 30 minutes. And then after that, take Q&A. So you can go ahead and send questions even during the presentation, and I will catch up to those at the end and work through them or show more features, whatever you're interested in. So I'll start off with a little demonstration of some of these new features. Oh, wrong view. Try that one. Here we go. All right, so this is vray 5 for SketchUp BETA. And I have a scene here, and you might notice some of the vray icons. A few of them might be new. Up here you see this one, and over here is this one. This one's vray Vision. So I'm going to open vray Vision and show you a little bit of what that's about. The idea here was to create a near real-time scanline renderer that would allow you to get some of the real-time features people have been looking for with SketchUp. So let's see if I can get my view over here. Here we go. Sorry about that. So here's how this scene loads up. This is a fairly brightly lit scene, and it comes in pretty bright. I can go here, and they have an auto exposure option. It's really handy. You'll notice something called fly mode over here too. You can enable fly mode with this icon, and that puts you into the sort of navigation mode. You can see WASD buttons on the keyboard to drive around, and then they use Q and E for up and down. If you forget any of the hotkeys, they have a shortcut list here. Notice that you can move the sun around with a shift key. So I'll show you that stuff now. I'll turn this off, and I can orbit around. Right mouse is zoom, middle mouse to pan around. And then if I enter this fly mode, I'm going to get up on my keyboard, from what I know from Call of Duty very well, the WASD keys. And then if you want to get higher, E. And if we want to go down, it's Q. So, and this has got a live link. That's what these little bars here indicate. So if I go to the scene and hide the sofas, here you should see it update in the viewport here pretty quick. Well, it is beta, so maybe it's, let's see here. Let's try it with the rug. There we go. So we can see that. And if you change materials, it'll show up. The big caveat on this one is there is no support for ray tracing. So things like refracted glass would be where you'd really notice it. So I have glass here, but it's just flat and reflective. But if we had a glass sculpture that would refract normally, you just won't see that. Now they're working hard on this to implement everything that's in vray and put it in there. One other thing that you can do in these scenes is you can move the sun around. So you hold down the shift key and then move your mouse, and you can see the sun traveling around. I can go up with my mouse or down and get a twilight effect here. Let's see. And you can even bring the sun around and see it in the window there. You can reset it with the F5 key, as you can see. So you can put it back to where it is in the scene. So that's vray Vision, and that is part of vray 5 beta. While I'm talking about the sun, let's take a look at those sun settings. So I'm going to bring up a vray interface and go to my lights and go to sunlight. And in here, you can see the sky model. There's a new one listed, and it is this one called Improved. So Improved is something with a little better looking twilight. When that sun gets down close to the horizon line, you get this great, rainbow sky that looks really impressive. So here's where my sun is currently coming from. It's back to our left and about 40 degrees up in the sky. So I'll kick off a interactive render here. And I need to bring that over to to V-Ray. Let's see if I can get that to pop up. There it is. Okay, I'm going to hide the side panels. And here's my currently active rendering going on. And I just pressed the wrong button and moved away. Let's get back in there. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to change my sun around. I want to move it to kind of where I can see it through the window so we can look out there. So that puts it right out. You can see the shadows coming toward us now. We'll set the camera angle to like 4 degrees. And here you can see it's starting to come down in the sky. Maybe if I'm at 324. And we bring this down to 3 degrees. I can use the region render and just draw a window here to kind of speed that up. And you'll see that really neat twilight effect as that gets going. There, now we can kind of see the sun through the sky, through the window there. Here it is at 0. And then even when it's below grade, you'll get a little bit of sky illumination, as you can see right here. So that's the improved sun model that they have for V-Ray 5 Beta. Okay, I'm going to stop this render and bring up a different scene I've got. This is a commercial exterior building. And the next feature I'd like to show you is the function called Light Gen. So here is, let me reset that. Here's what Light Gen looks like when you fire it up. It's got an interior mode where you can just move the sun and sky around. So different altitude variations and then different rotational variations. So sometimes it's fun to just to get an array of options, and you can just see some various random experiments with where the sun and sky might be located for your interior. On exteriors, there's actually even more than that. We have the sun and sky, but if you switch over to HDR mode, Chaos Group has developed 35 new HDRs that are included with the software. And they will give you various skies, and the variations are going to be rotational angles. So you can see all the permutations you get down here, 175, 5 times 35. So it takes it a few minutes to render all those out. And I did some earlier on this one, and that's what you saw when it first popped up. You can actually save them off even after they render, and it usually takes a minute for them to render. And you've got this array, and all those settings are embedded in the images. So you can pick any one of these and get that result right away. So I'll pick this one with contrails in the sky. You just have to do one click, kick off a render, and we'll see how that looks when it's rendering real time. So it takes it a minute to load up on this one because we have some car models in here. These are from Trinity's Car Pack 1. So I put some of these nice looking 3D cars in the scene. And the sky looks not like what we see up here. So I want to try clicking it again and see if that loads now. So if it works, it should go black and then a short delay, and then it loads up that new sky. So you can actually see it in real time as you adjust these things around. And looks just like that. Let's pick one with a really nice sunrise or sunset appearance. I'll pick, maybe this purpley one over here. So a lot of fun experimenting and getting different results, and really a great set of HDRs too. All right, I need to get back to kind of a sunlight, daylight kind of view. So I want the sun at my back. I'm going to pick this clear sky view right here. And then I'll go ahead and close Light Gen for now. And I'm going to work on putting some of the new dirt streak feature up on the top of this building. So let's say you're wanting to get a very used, dirty kind of appearance on here. There is the dirt material. This now has an ability to do what looks like dripping streaks across something. And I want to show you how you would apply that. So we need to get our material first from our scene. So if I just eyedropper it here, it should pick it right off in the materials. And then if you want to make something dirty, you can just right click, wrap in, and choose the dirt ray trace type. So this puts dirt on that material, and it's going to update and render it as I make my changes here. So I've played around with these settings already and have a few notes. One of the first things to know is you usually have to turn the radius up a lot bigger than 1. In this case, I'm going to go with 20. And then the fall off, let's see, the distribution, I might go up a little higher. And one of the things I learned with this one is we have to do ambient plus inner to get the dirt to appear. And you can see it coming through now. So I go down here and turn on these streaks. And we should start seeing those drippy streak lines coming down. I can change the size here and make them bigger. But the reason they're not kind of falling down is because they need some bias. They need to be pulled down by gravity. So here's where you do that. So now we're starting to really see that streak line effect. You can make the streaks bigger or larger here. So this is the actual scale of the thing. So you can get very skinny little streaks as you go down to smaller numbers, and they're just little lines now. And then the distribution over here is where they, how far they come down from the top of the building. So that's the new dirt streaks feature. While I'm in this scene, one other thing I'd like to show you here is the feature where they've replaced the displacement as being a material, and they've switched it around to being now a kind of geometry. So if we travel to the bottom here, there's like a little sidewalk, and I'd like to try turning this into some displaced bricks. So as you might recall, with a piece of geometry, you have to apply the fur or any of these things to it, you have to make it a group first. So if I make it a group, then now this is enabled. And so now this is ready to be a displacement type, and you'll actually see it in your vray interface in the geometry. So right here is displacement. So if we're going to put bricks on this ground here, the way we might do that is go select that face. We'll pick some bricks, and we'll just apply it to the selection. Now, sometimes they don't appear right away. This time it did, but if they don't, you may already know this. You can go to the Remove Materials option, and then you'll have better luck assigning materials. So this is a pretty tiny little brick here. Let's say we want to make this twice as big. So what I need to do with the map that I've got for the brick is go make it larger in the texture map here. We've also got the map applied as a bump map here. This is a modified version of the original. So both of these have this texture placement applied. If we wanted them bigger, we need to modify both maps. So let's take this one and let's make it 0.3. We'll make it about 3 times bigger. I'll go do the same thing with the diffuse map. So if we did that right, the bricks should look bigger there, and then when we render, they should look bigger in the view. So I'm kicking off a new interactive render so I can see the work as I go. In here, I can see the brick as like relief lines on the left side there. So that tells me there might be, yep, there's a reflection mask as well. So we probably need to change this one too. Okay, so we have a flat picture of brick with a bump map on the ground down here. And if we wanted to do that as a displacement, I'm going to use the bump map. So in the bump map, white is high, black is low. I can go up here and just right click, copy this map, and then go back to my geometry section and make that be my bump map. I'll just paste it as an instance. When I do that, it should create the geometry now. There's a kind of a delay as it develops all that geometry, and those bricks will actually pop out of the ground now. So this delay is always where it's got to go create all those new polygons. And it can take a little time if you've got a large area that has a displacement map applied. There we are. And as I get closer, you can see the 3D effect of it. Just a note, when you do apply these geometries like the grass and the displacement, kind of be aware of how huge that area is. If you apply grass to something that's, a square mile of ground plane, it'll really slow down as it develops all that geometry. But here we can see where that bitmap has now been used to create that displacement effect. It's much more reliable and straightforward than the old methodology. Now I'm using the beta here, but if you're on a material, you'll see there still is an option for displacement here, but that might be legacy or something. There's a lot of things they've changed with materials. So we were kind of hassling with those UVs there. I want to show you what they've done to fix that. So I'm going to go back to my living room now, and I'll use this to show you the options here. So you might recall I went and I modified the UVs on each one of those things. What if we could do all of them in one go? How could you have UV mapping that's so-called instance without the textures all being identical too? Well, I so happens I put in a hardwood floor in here, and I've put a material in that hardwood floor, and it's way too fine-grained at present. So let's see. Let me kick off a render. I think I've still got my my sundown sunlight, so I'm gonna go put that back so we have a little more of a daylight effect here. Go with 39 degrees, maybe 232 degrees. There we go. And I'll change my view down to the area down here. Or what the heck, we'll just do the whole view. I'll get in close. So here's my wood grain, a little too tight, and I'm gonna just eyedropper that so it's in my material library. This is the material that's assigned. So there's, just like on the brick, there's two places where there's a bump map and a diffuse map that both have UVs. So the way you can change them both is a new feature they have. You switch it out of type to mapping source, and there's only one mapping source available, and it's called UVW placement. It's got some really neat features, which I'll show you in a minute. But the first thing is when we put it there, we can now right click and copy. We can go to anywhere else in the scene where there is mapping, like on this bump map. We can go and do the same thing, switch it to mapping source, and now right click, paste as instance. So now change one and change them both. And so we should see the bump map and the color maps correlating pretty well. Maybe this would be a good time to sort of do this, and it might help if we aren't viewing the denoiser. So I'll leave it noisy. All right, so now that I've got that fixed, let's go make this much bigger. Let's turn this on and say we're gonna go with 0.2. So 5 times bigger grain, 5 times bigger bump. And you can see that there, but we're not getting any effective planks at this time. It all looks like one big sheet of wood, even though I've created geometry that actually has planks in it in the scene here. You can see that. So the next thing you might find interesting about these UVs is that we can actually apply randomization. Watch what happens when I set this on by node handle. And when I do that, now you see UVs going every crazy quilt direction. I'll turn this off and we'll just let the whole thing render. So it's actually doing 3 things here, and you can see that in the randomizer. It's doing U and V offsets from all the way one direction to all the way the other, so that it's fully offsetting. We're not doing any scale adjustment, but we are doing rotational adjustments. So in a case like wood planks like this, we would probably set this to 0, so they're all going the same direction. But now we should see grain interruptions from plank to plank. Give it a minute to view, and I think you can see where like certain planks cut off that we're getting, the boards are starting to show up. There's another function in here that lets you actually make the boards different colors too. Let's take a look at that. So I'm going to go back to my diffuse map here, and we can wrap this in something called multi-sub. Usually you think of multi-sub as being something where you've got a whole variety of textures down here, and it's going to randomly pick or use object ID to have lots of different materials. Like let's say you had 5 different pictures of this wood grain. But in the case where you don't have any more pictures of the wood grain, you can actually make it randomized by just choosing these other options. So if we go to random by node handle, I turn up my hue variations, you can see I've got all the planks show up with different hue. So this can really make it easy to do anything like tiles, bricks, wood planks, anytime where you've got something where you need a lot of randomness and you need it quickly and easily. They have a random seed option to give you completely different variations. And usually on something like a wood floor like this, what I find is real small amounts are just about right. The gamma is really strong, as you can see. So I usually put this in at 0.005. And then you get a little bit of natural variation. So now the grains are offsetting and the colors are offsetting. So both of these help a lot with those kinds of multi-object variations. Let me go on now and show you the new sheen and coat options. So I'm going to go back to my view number 3 up here, which turns some things on and puts us in another angle. And let's go up to where the pillow and the sculpture are. So the pillow is what I'm going to use for the sheen. And a sheen effect is kind of a satin-like effect. And you've already probably been simulating this in the past using like a completely overlaid material, but they've bundled this now into just the natural vray materials. So if I eyedropper that pillow color, it's this fabric new. Now the one trick on the sheen and the coat is you won't see them unless you turn on your advanced settings. And here they are. So if we wanted a sheen effect, just can crank this up and you'll see it now looks, milky. Usually the sheen color is a brighter and a hue shifted variant from the original color. So like this is kind of a dark red. So if it has sort of an orangey sheen, that might look like this. And the glossiness gets you from sort of a velvet look to more of like a satin look as you bring that higher. All right, let's take a look at the sculpture over here. I'm going to put a gloss coat on this that's independent of its original shininess. So right now, this one just has like a simple red plastic applied to it. So it's real simple. But the real things are often made out of a very gloss coated fiberboard. So I was going to take this laminate material here. No, C, I think, here. Normally it shows up as a floor type ground surface, but I'm going to switch it over and view it as fabric. And we're going to use that as the material on this. So we'll just right click, apply to selection. And here is its reflection amount. And we could make it softer, glossier, whatever. And if we want to go modify that coat effect, then we would go to the advanced settings. And here we can add a very wet kind of coat. That wetness is coming partly from this IOR value. So if this IOR value is small, it won't look nearly as intense and wet as if it's really high. And you can color tint your coat color as I have. Here is what it looks like if it's white. If this was supposed to be more of a red tinted wood, I might go here, wrap this in a color correct, and then try to make this a little more reddish of a color. Maybe bring the brightness down a little. Not that much. There you can see the result I'm getting. So that's sheen and coat. So I've got one last set of elements I'd like to show you before we open the floor for questions. And that is the new frame buffer, which is a really fantastical new thing. You probably already noticed it as I've been working, that this frame buffer is completely redesigned. So there used to be all those little tiny buttons down at the bottom, and that is now really just kind of a color picker over here, where you can go in and sample the view at various these are the pixel samplers. So if it's 7x7, it tells you what the raw color is right here and HSV and all that. So where did all those cool functions go? Those are now over in the layers panel. Now you can double click on this little bar and open it up, or you can also use the hotkey Control L and bring it out. And now, instead of just having one option for curves, you can have 20 curves. You can save them, you can interchange them. All you have to do is go over here and right click, new layer, and you can add things like curves, lookup tables, color balance, etc. You can also bring in a render element, and I'll show you that in a minute. You can stack up render elements and then apply exclusively to one of the render elements, something like exposure or white balance. And each one of them has its own blend modes available too. So you almost have a mini compositor over here now. And one of the new features, of course, is this filmic tone map. I'll go ahead and add a new exposure layer, and then you can see I could go in and crank up the exposure and turn up the contrast a little bit, and I can turn it on and off just with this one little option. So let's turn on our history too. H is the hotkey. I don't have it currently enabled. We need to go to VFB settings and switch that on if we want to see our history. I like to use project path and just have it auto save every time I finish a shot. You'll see lots of options, and there's even advanced settings up here that'll give you lots of choices about fonts and where these pictures appear and the resolution and aspect ratio and all those good things. So the other thing would be in our layers, we need to tell it where to save those layers. I'm just gonna pick a path here real quick. And that way, okay, that worked. That way it's got a place to save my settings over here. So we'll click save and close. Now I've got all these options. If we bring the little panel in, you can see you can have multiple columns if you want of history. If you hover your mouse over it, it tells you a little more about that shot. And over here with the with these options, these can all be saved now too. So we can actually just click the save and give it a name. I'll just give it a real quick temporary name. And what's neat about this now is when you go look at your sources, it instantly gives you a preview of how that's going to appear before you bring it in. So the last thing I'm going to show you on the frame buffer is the light mix and composite options down here. Let's go back to a little better view of my scene. I'm going to go back to this sort of pulled back view, and I'm going to let it render for a minute. And you'll notice down here on the lower right, all my lights are loaded in. Now that is coming from, in here I have enabled light mix. And in light mix, you can choose how the lights show up. Individuals, all my can lights are instances, so I told it to group instances. So over here, you just see one for can lights. But that's how you enable it. That's all you need to do is just add a light mix to the asset editor's list of render elements. Okay, so there's my view as it's going. This exposure is a little strong. I'll turn that off. Here's what it looks like without the filmic tone map, without the lens effects, and without the denoiser. And in the light mix now, let's say we wanted to repurpose this to more of an evening type of shot. I might go in and just turn off my environment and my sunlight. So now all the lighting we have is coming from this orange glow light in the fireplace and the can lights. That's really all there is. So if the can lights were down, let's say we just used a dimmer switch and brought those down, maybe we make them a little more warm in coloration like this. And now I've got a set of light mix choices, and I can either put those back to the scene and just bake those in, or I can apply them to a composite. So a composite, when you click that, it actually creates this stack of stuff here where you are looking at all the lights in the scene, and you can now go in and further change those. So my can lights, down here you can see here's the multiplier and the color tint. Previously, I had this composite that it was what I would call a back to beauty pass right here. So let me turn this first one off. So in the back to beauty, I've actually created all of the render elements and stacked them in order to just recreate the beauty comp. So the first layer of node is lighting, then global illumination. Let's say you wanted the global illumination a little bit tinted in some way. I can just say new layer and set a hue and saturation on that. And you'll see the little arrow which tells me it's only applying to that one global illumination layer. So now I can go in and you know, maybe make it a little stronger in hue, or maybe a little desaturated, whatever we want to do with that. And then I'll go in and turn on, here's my reflection pass, specular, refraction. So, and then the rest of these really aren't applicable in this particular scene. But there you have it. So that is the compositing and light mix features that are in the new frame buffer. It's very flexible, and you can adjust things almost like a mini After Effects in a way here. And I do like the new filmic tone map. I find that often adds a subtle layer of contrast that's nice. That's a new function that you haven't seen before. And if you expand your frame buffer enough, you can see the graph. So that as you adjust this, you can see what it's doing to the curves. One last little element on here is stats. So your statistics on your scene will show up here. I think I need to stop rendering and then they appear. So kind of a handy way to get your statistics. All right, so I'm gonna stop at that point and go see what questions you have. And I see we have 26 attendees, and want to thank you all for attending my webinar this morning. So the first, Ignacio asked if I'm working under Windows or iOS. So this is Microsoft Windows. And as far as memory consumption with vray 5 versus previous versions, the rendering itself should be comparable. I don't think there's any shift in those things, but since it's beta software and I'm not with Chaos Group, I can't speak authoritatively about that. What I often do on this machine, and this is a pretty good one, this is my office workstation. So I'll bring up my task manager. You can see here in Windows, performance, CPUs. This one is a dual 14, so it's 56 cores. And when I'm rendering it, usually can use them all. Let's show that. So here we are at 100%, 60%. There it is back to 100. It's rendering. It's often using most of the render horsepower available. My memory consumption for SketchUp, it looks like it's only 3 gigs for this scene. The other scene has a bunch of cars in it that take some, they're pretty high res, pretty high poly. That's why they're vray proxies. Let's go ahead and turn that expensive displacement off. I'll just go ahead and delete that function. And we'll go back to V1 view and kick off a render here, and you'll see what that one's memory consumption is. So here we can see it picking up, and you can see it loading the meshes down here for the cars. Each time it loads one, this bumps up a little. I have a GTX 1080 Ti in this card as a video card, and it has 11 gigs of RAM, I think. So this one would easily fit in that amount of memory. Now, we don't really know exactly how much of this is the renderer that would actually go to the video card, but over here you can actually go to the GPU. And if you wanted to render in GPU, you'd switch this over to CUDA right here. And this graph would show you if it was using any CUDA cores to render. So this is a live render right now, so I'll just orbit around a little and you can see how that looks. We'll go over here and look at these cars a little bit. You can see they're very high poly. Okay, and then I promised to show you GPU rendering. Now keep in mind this is beta, sometimes things don't work quite right, but if I switch it to CUDA and kick that off, then it's loading it into the frame buffer. And when I go back here, we'll look at the CUDA cores as it loads it into video memory. Speaking of which, why don't we switch this to, let's see. I guess it's down here at the bottom, dedicated and shared memory. So we should see those load up as it puts all that into video RAM. And then now it's rendering and we can see the CUDA shoot up here. All right, next question. Oh, what are the specs of my machine from Stephanie? And I guess I just showed that off a little bit. So now you know all about that. Yes, as far as sending a link to review the recording, I am going fast, and that's because I have a lot to show. It's already 10:36, and I didn't want to keep you here all day, so I am working really fast, and it's not something you can keep up with if you're also on the vray 5 beta, which is public right now, by the way, and I am on the newest one, which is beta 4. So anybody who has a current full commercial license of vray can get on the beta. And you can contact our company. We answer the phone. It's 816-525-0103. And we're on, you can email us anytime at sales@trinity3d.com. And our website, vray.us, is our vray-centric site. So sales@vray.us. You can see my logo down here in the corner for that. So I'll send that out. Jesse, when can we beta test? Now, it's public, you can get it. What hardware specs do you think will be recommended? Well, I've got lots of different clients and lots of different machines, laptops. Laptops are usually where you're getting down to the slowest kinds of machines. It'll run on just about anything. It'll just be slow. You need all the CPU power you can have. Most people render with CPU rather than GPU. If you have a laptop with a really good GTX or RTX type card, that could be viable. That could render pretty quickly. But for us, we choose to get dual Xeons almost all the time. We find they're just really fast and really reliable, and that's how we render things out. And Andy also asked, is this being recorded so we can come back? Yes, since you asked, I will definitely save the movie of this out and we'll make it available. And again, email anytime if you want a download link that you didn't get. sales@vray.us. We're glad to help with whatever your concerns or questions are. So let's see, we're at 10:38 and I don't know that I've got any other elements here I wanted to demonstrate. Let me take a quick look. So some of these are features that we saw in vray Next, particularly the UVW stuff. So I find in a lot of cases I have to go in, and objects, as you know, often have mapping applied at multiple levels. There's like this, there's this thing they have that they call the inspector right here. So when you hover your mouse over it, you'll see at the top these little half circles and these rings to show you at what levels of grouping are materials applied and what do they look like. So luckily in this scene, it's pretty simple. There's just one half moon with that color. But as you get to where a material is been applied to an object and then as a component, and especially if it's even then further grouped, it gets really hard to go in and apply a material any longer. So that's why they made these little goodies. And this little clear materials thing, that it can take a few minutes for that to work if there's lots of polys, but that'll definitely erase everything that's applied to a surface, like apply it to the curb. And once it's done, it'll appear like white like that. And then you can always then go and get a material to stick. So if you're having a situation where a material just won't stick, that's probably what it is, and that's a solution for it. Okay, going back to the questions here. A well-configured machine is required. Unfortunately for me, how to switch back to PC, and getting an iMac with such power would need, yeah, that's true. A lot of power on a Mac. They bill for that. It's expensive. So I'll tell you how I get a lot of power cheaply. I go to off-lease machines, typically Dell or HP workstations. My favorite source is theservicestore.com. For about $1,000, I can get a dual 12 with 64 gigs of RAM. It'll beat any other machine new that costs even $5,000 or $8,000 because you've got 24 physical, 48 virtual cores to render. Some people are going GPU and they're getting banks of RTX cards, so you can get those for what, $700 or $800, and so you could buy a couple of those and gang them together and get pretty fast performance there. But as you can see, I'm mostly still sticking with CPU rendering in what we do. All right, well, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. That's been a pretty long presentation. We'll be doing more of these webinars. Let me know what kinds of topics you'd like us to talk about, and any way we can be of help or support you in your use of vray or SketchUp. We're one of the only dealers in the US for SketchUp, and we're really dedicated to it. We want to be a good resource for people who use SketchUp, and we want to teach courses that help people get better at it and get great results. So I hope you have a, oh, one more question popped in. When will we have training in the US? We do right now. We've actually already scheduled vray for SketchUp classes that we are certified by Chaos Group in Bulgaria to be the US Academy. And we have a 10-person classroom. Of course, few people at this time of the pandemic want to physically come to our office in Kansas City. So we're doing it virtually going forward until we can have our classroom active again. All right, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.